director of Cliffhanger.
Here she comes.
And Die Hard 2 comes the action-adventure event of the season.
Open fire!
Cutthroat Island, rated PG-13. Starts Friday, December 22nd.
Avasti, mateys, and welcome to Cinemarcade. This is the podcast about movies, video games, and the sparks that fly when those two worlds collide, much like the sparks that fly off of a pair of swords that are clashing together in a high seas adventure. I'm milking this too much. Today we are talking about Cutthroat Island from 1995, notorious as one of the biggest box office failures in the history of film, and it's got a wild story that leads up to that, as do most major box office failures, so I'm excited to get into it. But I have a hale and hearty crew of not landlubbers aboard. I don't know pirate lingo. I think that might put me at a deficit for this episode. Who's joining me?
Avasti, matey, I am Annie Bonnie, a.k.a. J-Ban.
Welcome. And who else is here?
And I am the scallywag Justin.
You are a scallywag. People don't say that enough about you. You've got a scallywag kind of look about yourself. Cutthroat Island, a movie I knew about by reputation, but had never gotten around to it before. I mean, here's the thing. Lots of movies fail and no one notices, or they'll disappoint, or they're anything like that. Some movies fail so spectacularly that they not only kill multiple careers, they kill an entire studio and an entire genre for a little bit. That's hard to pull off, but a lot of people were laying that on this movie. This became kind of synonymous with just box office bloat and like kind of out of touch executives. So it's a whole interesting story. And I think with all of the news that kind of went around this movie and the reputation that was attached to its financial performance, I never actually bothered to see the movie, because I just assumed, probably a pretty bad movie. Which isn't necessarily fair. Box office quality does not equate to film quality. So this is that's my long, circuitous way of saying this is a first time watch for me. But this is not for you, right, Jimmy? You've seen this.
No, this was a childhood joy to watch. I loved watching this as a little girl. There are so few action movies that have women as leads, and to watch Gina Davis kick ass. Now I'm saying watching it as an adult, you sort of some of the charm wears off.
Yeah.
But as a kid, there was nothing like watching a woman with a sword. And I grew up to be a woman with a sword. I fenced, partially inspired by these and other movies. I did become a fencer when I was in high school and college. But this was just an absolute classic for me.
Would you actually say this is one of the movies that made you want to do it?
Definitely. I think it might be the only female-led sword movie. I can't think of another other than Zorro, and that was has Catherine Zeta-Jones having a sword for 4 seconds as her clothes gets ripped off.
It still ends with her nude.
Yeah. But it's definitely Gina Davis really kicks ass and takes names in this show, especially from a childhood perspective.
Yeah, I can absolutely see it. I mean, there's a few movies I want to talk about sort of in comparison and contrast to this movie, and one of them was kind of the Cutthroat Island for me as a kid, and that's The Rocketeer, which was...
I loved The Rocketeer.
Similarly kind of old-fashioned in its execution, sort of in a way, because it was modern and slick, but it felt like an old-fashioned kind of movie, it sort of opened the door to classic films for me in a lot of ways, and I can go back and look at old film noirs or old serials or things like that and see all the influences that went into making it. So Cutthroat Island definitely valuable in that regard. Is this the first time for you, Justin?
Oh yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Were you aware of this movie at all? I'm curious. Had you heard of it even as in relation to its failure?
I had not heard anything about it.
Okay. Yeah, kind of lost to time. There have been bigger box office bombs since then, but Yeah, that's the question I wanted to come into this with is, does this movie hold up? And I'm going to discuss that in a moment. But first, I have to give the backstory on this movie because it's insane.
It's a wild story.
It's a really wild story. It's a lot of twists and turns.
It was funny because, like, I saw on YouTube there's a documentary, and I'm like, wow, this is probably very entertaining. But I didn't have time to watch it.
This is the product of film director Rennie Harlin. He was an up-and-coming filmmaker from Finland. He had kind of a string of, like, low-key hits, but he seemed kind of poised to be the next big like box office like adventure guy. So like his big breakout here in the States was Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which many argue is the best one. I mean, it's probably the one with the weirdest kills. I'm going to give it that. I don't know if it's
I think I remember the weird kills, but I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched 4.
I've only seen the first one.
It's a deeply silly movie. This is the movie where Freddy gets revived by flaming dog pee. So it's a pretty silly one, but it also has like one of the most incredible
Typical Freddy.
Typical Freddy. It does have one of the most incredible sequences of any horror film, which is a young woman in her dream getting turned into a roach and then trapped inside like a sticky roach motel, and it's really cool and really weird. So I'll give him credit for that. But yeah, after that, he directed movies like Die Hard 2 and Cliffhanger.
Ooh,
so,
okay.
And he was actually one point attached to a movie that we talked about, Alien 3. He was going to be the director of Alien 3. I forget which pitch was his. I think he might have been the Wooden Planet.
Wooden Planet?
Yeah, I think that might have been his idea, but I forget exactly.
You're right. I think it is the Wooden Planet.
Yeah. We talked about all the different like variations that film took, but I think that was one he was insistent on. So,
and he directed 4 episodes of Burn Notice.
Oh, there you go. That bringing it back around.
Yeah.
So in 1993, he married Gina Davis, who Gina Davis in 1993 was riding pretty high. So not only is she the most genetically perfect human being who's ever lived, she's also has a genius IQ, is an Olympic level archer, and was like a beautiful movie star at this time. Who was she was an Oscar winner by now. And she was starting to prove herself as a box office draw because she had back-to-back hits with Thelma and Louise and A League of Their Own. And so now it's like, okay, well, Gina Davis is a movie star. What are we going to do with her? And her husband's idea was to make her into an action star. So they got signed to do 2 movies together. One of them came out after this. It was called A Long Kiss Goodnight, and I love that movie.
I love that movie. It's so good.
It is a hoot and a half. It's a great Christmas movie because it's a Shane Black script, which are all secretly Christmas movies. So that movie, definitely check that out. But this one, unfortunately, had the misfortune of coming out first, and I think the bad press off of this one sort of buried The Long Kiss Goodnight a little bit as well. But yeah, so Cutthroat Island came first.
And they were married for 4 years, and when they divorced, it was the day after her husband's illegitimate child was born.
You might find a correlation there, I'm wondering. Yeah, there might just be. I'm just speculating on that, but so I think the biggest mistake that they made early on was going to Carolco as the production company. If you're not familiar with Carolco, they used to be more ubiquitous in the late 80s and early 90s, and they were the producers of the biggest hit film of 1991, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Oh.
The problem with that movie, a huge hit, but the problem with that is that movie went wildly over budget. Carolco was already a kind of small independent production company to begin with, so they were nearly bankrupt. The profits that they were getting back from Terminator 2 were mostly going to James Cameron, and so they needed another like pretty huge hit in order to stay afloat. And so when Rennie Harlin brought them this idea, they canceled every other project they had on their slate. They funneled,
always a good sign.
They funneled all the money into this so that they could give him a $60 million budget to make this big, splashy, swashbuckling adventure movie. Now, initially, they had a big star attached. They had Michael Douglas, was going to play the male lead, but he had a very narrow window in which he could shoot. And as production kind of stretched out, he had to drop out. And this left the studio with a very expensive adventure film without a tested action movie lead, and they began casting a very wide net to replace him. They talked to Tom Cruise, he said no, Liam Neeson, Charlie Sheen, Keanu Reeves, Michael Keaton. They even went to Daniel Day-Lewis, who would never have done this in a million years, but hey, they had to try. They all passed. They finally landed on Matthew Modine only because A, he was available, B, he was affordable, and C, he had some sword fighting experience. He was also a trained fencer in college. So Modine is a very likable actor. I think most people know him as the lead of Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, where he's very good. This movie sort of tanked his career for a long bit. I think he's kind of had a little bit of a resurgence. He was in the first season of Stranger Things, which was huge for him.
I didn't even realize, but when I looked him up, that was the one that I was like, oh yeah, but then he was Joker in Full Metal Jacket. I never knew that.
Yeah,
I never would have guessed.
He had a big part in The Dark Knight Rises. He's starting to get more and more work now, which is cool. But this one really kind of slowed him down for a long time. Also just at this point, he just wasn't a box office draw. A lot of people were thinking, oh, I'm going to go see the new Matthew Modine movie. So this put a lot of extra pressure on Geena Davis to open this movie in a big way. So casting issues aside, the production was a disaster and they faced multiple delays, which caused the budget to skyrocket. So at one point, Rennie Harlin got into a fight with the cinematographer and fired him. And more than a dozen other cast members quit in solidarity with the cinematographer. So they had to stop production.
It's never a good sign when you have usually if there's a mass quit, then generally speaking, that director is kind of a dick.
The person who stayed is the problem.
We could say, to use the parlance of the movie, there's not a steady hand on the tiller, you could say. So that a lot of people left, and then they rehired a new cinematographer who fell off a crane and broke his leg, so he needed to be replaced.
Oh my god!
And then there were all these huge, elaborate sets. It's a combination of real life locations in Malta and Bali and a couple of other places, and then these really huge indoor sets at the Pinewood in London. And one of the sets, which is a big water tank where they had to do all their swimming, a sewer pipe ruptured into that tank, so they had to spend a couple of weeks draining that and scrubbing it fully and getting that all cleaned out. And so as the budget ballooned even further out of control, Carolco could literally no longer foot the bill for this movie. Rennie Harlin had to go into his own pocket to pay for extensive script rewrites and cast salaries. And then there are also all these weird frivolous demands that Rennie Harlin was making. So Matthew Modine gave an interview and he said that Rennie Harlin insisted on having 3 cameras running at all times.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
What does that do? I mean, I maybe just wanted to be more efficient and get coverage or something.
It's also because if you have 3 cameras and you do a shot that from an angle that you think this is the way I want it, you have more ways to look back at it in post during editing and actually I think this this angle, but yeah, it's.
Well, I think it shows somebody doesn't trust their script. I think somebody who and also can understand in theory from an action perspective, because there was a lot of cuts in those action scenes, but instead of creating a sense of continuity and mapping, it sort of creates frantic editing, which sort of is usually the death nail from a good action perspective.
Absolutely. And 95 to mid 2000s was kind of when that trend was really ramping up. I think it got really bad after the Bourne movies came out. And it's just shaky cam cuts and cuts and cuts, so you can't really make anything out. I'm so glad we've moved more into the fluid, John Wick style long take action scenes. They're so much more impressive.
And I think it's really interesting to compare this with the other pirate movie, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl.
See, that was the one for me as a kid.
Yeah. But again, no woman with a sword. A woman gets to faint.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
Well, I mean,
we've progressed.
At least it's feminist in the sense that they made it clear it was the very tight corset they were forcing her to wear that made her
Which wasn't even at the time. You didn't wear corsets for restricting, there's nothing worse from so I've done historical costuming. I did it a lot in college, and it's just so stupid. At this time period, you didn't try to get a tiny waist. That's not why you wore a corset. It was so fucking stupid.
Yeah. I'm with you. We are going to cover that whole trilogy.
Bridgerton
is down with it?
Bridgerton has whole scenes where people are using or trying to tight lace a Regency underwear looked like a bra.
Okay.
It wasn't a corset. It was maybe a long line corset, which looked like a bustier, but it was just it is my biggest pet peeve.
I did not know this was a button for you.
It makes me so angry because it's always like coded. This is how women are oppressed. Wearing a corset feels really, if it's a properly made, I've made historical corsets. It feels nice. It feels like you've got like this really gentle back brace on. So you've got perfect posture all the time. But like no time throughout the history of the world was tight lacing a thing. Very often, there's a slight little hiccup in the during the Civil War era, but it was just like not even.
I feel now it's just kind of like cinema shorthand for look how hard women had it back then.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, and it's so lazy. It's such lazy,
especially considering there's a lot of ways, a lot of other things they could do.
I think it's really funny because unlike in this movie and Cutthroat Island, she's not wearing any underwear a lot of the time.
No, she seems very comfortable.
I was like, this shirt is a little see-through, madame.
I didn't.
Oh darn! Yes.
Oh no.
No, but
gonna have to watch it back just to make sure.
And then there was this confluence of bad luck in terms of their distribution. So when this movie was coming out, MGM was going to distribute it, and they were being sold. Like they were in the middle of a big transition point, so they couldn't really afford any money for marketing. Carol Co. filed for bankruptcy. They just, like a month before this movie came out, they filed Chapter 11. They are no longer a company because of this movie. So basically, when this movie finally came out, there's no money left to promote it. And in its opening weekend, it debuted at number 13. Usually, they don't even report beyond the top 10. This one came in 13. In total, it would only make back $10 million. It cost upwards of $120 million to make. So this was a massive, massive money loser.
What time of the year did it come out?
December, late December. Ooh. Yeah, right at the end of the year. They just kind of snuck it out. So this made it the biggest box office failure of all time at the time. And even when adjusted for inflation, this is still the 5th biggest money loser of all time.
What's number one?
Number one is another movie like an old-fashioned type adventure that I kind of defend, John Carter. From Disney.
Seen John Carter.
A movie I kind of like. I think people are coming around on that one a little bit, but that one was a huge flop as well. But yeah, so this also seemed to put a cap on the entire pirate movie genre. Now, pirate movies are a staple going back to like the dawn of film, because it's just sort of a timeless adventure story and it always works. But then by the time you get to like the 70s and 80s, the pirate movies that are coming out are few and far between, and they are box office poison. There's a movie called Yellowbeard with Eric Idle. There's a movie called The Pirates from Roman Polanski. Both of those were just massive, massive flops. And then this one just seemed to kind of put the final nail in its coffin. It's just like, all right, well, apparently pirates are no longer profitable. And as we'll see when we finally talk about it, that's kind of the reason that Pirates of the Caribbean was looked at as such a swing. And it was such a risky move for them to make that movie. And we'll compare and contrast when we get to that one about all the different ways that they tried to find a more winning formula. Now, this movie...
Maybe a good script?
Maybe a better script? Okay. Oh, I also looked up these screenwriters, okay?
Yeah.
So it's 2 screenwriters. It's Robert King and Mark Norman. Robert King, after this, his most recent thing is he's the creator of the CBS show The Good Wife, which is like a big acclaimed Emmy-winning show. And Mark Norman, his very next project after this was Shakespeare in Love, for which he won an Oscar. And that was his last project too. He has not worked since.
It's so shocking because those projects are both very well written, but it just feels like, and I'm super curious, like maybe these are the writers who got the credit, but maybe the director had a lot of because there's just a lot. There were again, when I was a child, loved this movie. Mm-hmm. When I was watching it as an adult, I was just like, is that the line? Is that the line that made it through numerous edits?
Yeah.
I'd be watching the movie and then a bad line would come out and I would just be like, ouch, like really? And it would just completely take me out of the movie because I just felt the writing was so bad.
The thing that always takes me out, and this movie does it really bad early on, is bad ADR. Mm-hmm. When the dialogue is very clearly being dubbed over and it's just... There's very little attempt to give it some accuracy. I feel like Rennie Harlan does that a lot in his movies. I think that could just be, a European thing, because a lot of European movies are dubbed regardless. Like, that's just the way that they're done. But it's always a little distracting for me. And it makes the movie feel just like 20% cheesier than it needs to.
Yeah, and it's something that, again, it was a Star Wars related production quote, but it was like somebody said to George Lucas, people don't talk like this.
Yeah.
And there was a few different times where I was like, that's a really weird and way to say that, like a really weird and like longer way to say something while you're being chased and about to die or something.
Yeah.
Like...
we'll get to the final line.
Brevity,
but yeah. Oh man, the final line of the final line of which he's delivering the killing blow to the bad guy, Dog, Dawg. We need to make that very clear. His name is Dog. Is pretty painful and pretty hilarious.
And she also. The line earlier of at the beginning of the movie, pretty much of I took your balls.
Right.
I was like,
right at the beginning. I mean,
okay,
that was a thing.
It's gonna be that like level of like cheesiness.
I mean, I will also.
There's so many better things that could have been said.
There's one more thing that kind of gets laid on this movie unfairly, and I think it's just kind of a cop out. It was female-led action movies dried up pretty bad after this. Like, I think the next one that we got would be like 2003 with Aeon Flux, which was another huge bomb. So like that became.
Well, and I think there's something to say that. I think it's so interesting
The
when you
dogs are
compare
turning into
this
a
to something
racetrack.
like Alien, because in Alien, she's not the only woman, and a lot of these female-led action stories, they're the only woman. They're exceptional. It's almost like they live in a vacuum where they're the only woman that exists, and I can't stand that. And I think it really undermines a community of women, but also like it gets so annoying when you get these female-led action movies and they have a budget, but then like they just aren't good movies, and you get lots of men who get to make terrible movies.
That's the thing.
Like,
yeah.
And here, I think that's part of the problem, because this movie was a female-led movie written and directed by men.
Yeah.
And look, we all know that sometimes men struggle to write a good female character or anything around a female character.
Well, let's go with the opening of this movie. She opens up sleeping with a sleazeball.
Yeah.
Like an absolute sleazeball. And it's not like, and it's sort of portraying her as a James Bondian type character who sleeps with who she wills.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it was just so stupid. Like, at least make the person that she's sleeping with attractive.
Yeah.
Like, or like sexy, but he's just slimy, and it makes you think less of her that she's slept with this piece of shit.
Well, and that's the thing that they always used to try to do with female action characters is, since the writers don't know how to write women, they just wrote men. So they make her like, that's the way they kind of level it out, is they make her behave like a man, and then they'll throw in little jabs like the balls line that you mentioned to make it feel like it's more of a feminist kind of girl power sort of moment. And it's a hokey bit. And okay, well, let's talk about Gina Davis in this movie, because all right, so I'm going to preface and say overall I had a pretty fun time in this movie. I think had I seen it when it was new, like you did, J-Man, I think I absolutely would have been able to look past a lot of the flaws that I wasn't able to look past this time, because I think I would have been so much more on board. But I did have generally a good time with this movie. But Gina Davis in this role is a little perplexing. Now, I love her to death. I think she's incredible. She is 40 years old here, and she looks fantastic, but I don't know if this character is meant to be a 40-year-old woman.
See, I don't have a problem with her being 40. What I have a problem is that they set her up as an idiot child to start off with.
Yeah.
That's clearly not her age and her stake. She should be already captaining her own ship at this stage in her life. Also, that it's just like, so she fits so well in something like Thelma and Louise
Yes.
or A League of Their Own. And she goes in and out of this old-timey perspective. So at one moment she's like she's an old-timey pirate, and the next moment she's like a girl power quote or tagline, and it's just like, it's very jarring to go from, like, you'll be watching her kick ass and then she says something so fucking stupid and you're just like, this line doesn't belong in this world.
When she was talking her way past the guards to talk to, I forgot the dude's name, the guy who had the piece of the map. Yeah. She was like, "Oh, I'll take care of you, and I'll take care of you too." And I was like, "What are we doing here?"
Oh yeah, and those two, whenever they have banter, like their banter is kind of just reduced to like a lot of dick jokes.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Like, yeah.
Not with Shaw, because Shaw was the opposite of her, right?
Shaw's Matthew Modine, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about when they were going to see the
Mordecai.
guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like those guys, like, it's just, sometimes you're just like, why?
Right. I mean, it's
the only way she gets through that is by dressing up as a sex worker.
Well, yeah,
and
that's how you
using
do it.
her charms to get
because
through.
they can't tell a face of a woman when her lady parts are out.
Exactly. That's going to distract.
It's like, oh my God, she's a world famous pirate, and she's been here before.
And look, I'm just going to say it. I don't think a woman who has spent 40 years living on the high seas is going to have skin that good. I'm sorry. I just don't think she will. I think her teeth to be falling out. She's a hard drinking, hard fighting. Like,
she seems much younger.
She should be all scarred up and like, but she's just like a glamorous and like ready to go at it. And look, it's the movie. It's the vibe
she
of the
had
movie.
fantastic hair. Whoever was doing her hair for this
hair.
work, man, like she was doing like so much, and like, you need to put your hair up if you're in an action sequence.
No, it's fine.
No, it's not. Not if you ever like been in a sword fight with hair in your face, it doesn't work.
You just guess.
That's usually not a good rule of thumb when using blades.
You just start making assumptions and hoping for the best. See, that's where the luck comes in.
Just blindly jab, and something will work out eventually.
So yeah, the movie starts off with her like her liaison, and then of course her running away from being captured, and like some of this action sequence is so fucking stupid.
Yeah,
like the action sequences go way too hard, way too early. Like, for example, she's a pirate, and they fired on a town with explosives, which again, that's not how cannonballs work.
That is not how a cannonball works. Cannonballs put holes in things. That's
they
what
literally shoot an entire town up just trying to capture her for stealing a carriage. And it's so fucking stupid. And it's like, no sense of proportion.
It felt like a really dumb way of like saying, oh, that's how dangerous they think she is, even though she's very clearly not just like a random murderer or whatever. She's a pirate, but she's not like out there to execute everybody they meet. She seems to at least to be somewhat normal as a pirate.
Well, I think this is kind of speaking to overall the big problem people have with this movie. This movie, for better or for worse, this is a resolutely old-fashioned movie. Like we mentioned. You mentioned Zorro earlier. I think that's a good comparison too. Zorro and The Rocketeer are both similarly old-fashioned movies. They're playing with a classical genre, but both of those two movies like have little winks. They have little nods that they have little ways that they're updating the script or making things a little bit more relevant to the 90s when they were shot. This is a movie that the only thing that's like contemporary about this movie is the budget and some of the accent work from the two leads. That's about it. The rest of it is like and it's got a couple of like ribald jokes like thrown in there, but for the rest of this is just a classic pirate adventure. It is not a coincidence that Matthew Modine is styled to look exactly like Errol Flynn in this movie. It is not a coincidence at all. Well, let's talk about Modine too, because again, he's just an actor to me that reads very modern. And it was true in Full Metal Jacket as well, like where he did feel and it worked there because his character is supposed to be a bit of an outsider from the rest of them. Well, he feels very modern here.
With Shaw's character, he doesn't, like, he's either playing the damsel in distress or the cad, and he doesn't have the ability to play either one of them very convincingly, because again, I don't think it's the actor's fault. I think it's the script's fault.
Yeah, he's a cutie. I think he's charming.
He's very cute, but like having someone like Michael Douglas, who like the romancing the stone type of character is what I believe they were aiming for with this guy. But he just sort of has this sort of like this sort of childish joie de vivre that just doesn't carry over to a very strong chemistry between Gina Davis and Matthew Modine.
Yeah,
I think
like
they're adorable together.
Yeah,
but they're not like burning up the screen like say in Romancing the Stone.
No, he's like a little bit of a rascal, but he doesn't feel dangerous in the same way that I wonder what kind of movie this would have been had they kept Michael Douglas. He would have been 10 years older than he was when he was doing Romancing the Stone. He probably would have been playing a pretty different character than the one they landed on with this younger man here. But I think he would have brought the right energy to it, and he does tend to have a lot of chemistry with his leads. And he feels... Michael Douglas's whole thing is that he feels a little scuzzy and a little dangerous. That's what he made his whole career in the 80s off of. And I would have liked to see what kind of like grittiness he could bring to this part. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I think that would have been fine. I don't have a problem with what Modine is doing here. I feel like
the thing that this movie excels at, but it's hard to pay attention to it excelling, is the fight choreography, and the action sequences are over bloated, but like the bones are good. The bones of the action sequences are really good. Like Gina Davis did really good work with her stunt double. Like there was actual she actually did some falls. I could tell. And then
there are some that are really painful, like green screen stuff, like when she's falling on a table. Like it's like, oh boy, okay, that's an insert shot. After they ran out of money,
there was a couple different shots where I was like, I can still see the green edges. On the mat, like on the plate. You didn't do anything to clean that up.
It was an early technology, but it was that looked a little rough. But I mean, I appreciate the swashbuckly nature to this movie, and this is a 2-hour movie, but it clips. It really moves at a pace because if you're bored every 10 minutes, there's going to be an action sequence, and it's going to be way too long and too many explosions, but it's going to be fun.
And it's so funny. It takes so many set pieces from classics like Raiders of the Lost Ark with the monkey, as well as a couple of other scenes that I believe were lifted wholesale from Raiders.
Yeah.
And
there's a character named Montana Smith. No. Yeah, but I mean, no, it's very derivative in a lot of ways, and it's meant to be a throwback. But even by the 90s, like the people who would have remembered this genre of film was getting to be pretty old.
I thought you were about to say the people who remembered the days of piracy.
Yeah, there were very few.
And I have to say, I was thoroughly entertained. I didn't have to pause the movie. I didn't have to there was definitely moments where I was knocked out of the swashbuckling world.
Yeah.
And there was definitely like a little bit of inconsistent characterization.
Yeah.
That was jarring as an adult that you gloss over as a child.
Oh yeah.
But there's set pieces, like, I just wish there wasn't so much explosions. Like, there was no reason to have so many insane pyrotechnics in like, I don't know, have you guys ever seen Master and Commander?
Yes.
That is how you do ship battles.
I love that movie so much.
It's such a good movie.
It's so good.
It's so good.
2003 really was the year when like nautical adventures started coming back, because Master and Commander didn't like make as much money, but it was Oscar nominated and it's looked at now as a classic. So.
I do think that the scoring, speaking of like nautical themes, I feel like the scoring in this movie was actually really good. It reminded me a lot of the Goonies, actually.
Kinda, yeah.
It went pretty hard.
It's a great score. Yeah, it's exactly what you want for a movie like this. Like, it's going to get you hyped up for it.
The right score, just maybe not quite the right movie in the sense of like it didn't live up to the score at times, because you're just like, all right, well, this is the fourth time everything's exploded so far in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm way less excited, but the music's cool.
Yeah. And it was fun for Frank Langella to turn up as the bad guy here, because I feel like whenever he takes a villain role, especially like in the 80s, 90s, like he commits so much harder than the material requires. If you need any further proof, just look at his turn as Skeletor in the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren, where he is just like playing it to the absolute rafters and having so much fun. Like, he makes that movie fun, even though it's like a functionally broken, like completely unwatchable movie, but he makes it really fun.
Steve was just staring at me and this fidget spinner because I kept making noise with it.
If you're hearing clanks on here, it's not somebody working on pipes. It's
which one was that guy?
Oh, Frank Langella played Dog.
Okay, yeah.
D-A-W-G, Dog. I love it.
He was such an interesting character to me, purely because he always seemed to be just quieter than he probably needed to be.
Well, he's good at doing that low-key menace kind of thing, and then he'll just crunch on the scenery when he needs to.
There was a couple times where he was doing that low-key menace thing, and he was meant to be addressing like multiple people, but I don't think the person next to him would be able to understand what he was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Let alone the 7 other people on the ship that are like around him that he's talking to.
They do a fun thing with that I wish more movies did, which is have a henchman with one weird thing, like one thing that's like historically incongruous. So,
the guy with the chain
arm, Snellgrave is the name's character. Like, they could have given him a scarier name than Snellgrave, but he has like a chain and a claw like on the end of his arm, and he uses it to do all these crazy kung fu and grappling hook moves. And it's just really fun idea, and I wish more movies did that. It used to be a staple of the Bond movies.
It was a staple of the Bond movies.
And that's sort of gone by the wayside as they got more serious. But yeah, bring back another Jaws type character, please. Yeah, I mean,
Odd Job, and
we
just need somebody with a weird quirk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then don't talk about it too much. Don't focus on it too hard. They're just there, living their life, doing their henchman things.
Yeah. No, and
how useful would a map be if it was on your skull?
Yeah, right. Of course,
incredibly inconvenient because you can't use it.
No,
someone else has to.
Yeah, you
can't go. Yes, here is 42. And then here you have to just like stay bald, and 2, have a friend who really handles your head a lot.
Right. Well, and like, what if you go naturally bald? Like, and then you've just got this map exposing itself to the whole world, you know? Like, you didn't plan that. And like, did they like proportion it so that, because it looks like when they scalp him and use it as a map.
What projection did they use?
Yeah, they would have shrunk down to be more. Yeah, it's more accurate. But like, was it just kind of all distended, like it's written on the side of a balloon when they tattooed it on him? Like, that's some weird reverse engineering optical illusions.
The other ones was on a piece of wood and a piece of parchment.
Yes.
So
the parchment was just lazy at that
point. Map making methodologies, honestly.
I mean, look, this is kind of the MacGuffin of the whole piece, is that they need to run around, look for these 3 pieces of a map to get to the legendary Cutthroat Island.
I kind of forgot the lore and backstory, so my apologies. Who is it that decided that this was the way they were going to Infinity Stone out their map, which was like, all right, I know of this really cool place. George, get over here. I need your head. Tim, you've been working on like woodworking and wood burning and stuff.
Break out your lathe.
And Steve, you're the only one here who knows how to write. So
yeah. I mean, that's they must have just like really trusted each other and like divvied this up. And it's such an elaborate puzzle, but it's also like an insultingly stupid puzzle. I think everybody in the audience is going to be ahead of what it's like. What do these numbers on this mean? I'm like, motherfucker, you're a pirate. What numbers do you use?
She literally reads off a few numbers and then goes, there's not even a latitude here. Those numbers were the latitude.
Right. What are you confusing it with? It's like, these are the answers to me Sudoku puzzle. Like, what the fuck are you doing? They're obviously their latitude and longitude. Like, there's nothing else it could be. But like, we need this whole dramatic moment in the middle of a
Okay.
fight sequence when they're blowing up their second town. And I do appreciate that Modine commented on it. It's like, oh, this is the second town you've destroyed completely for no reason. So like, they're supposed to be like up to no good and whatnot, but it is, you do have to think like the infrastructure damage here is ridiculous.
Look, I know they may not be as well educated as we are in modern day times, but you didn't realize it was just backwards?
Yeah.
And not Latin?
Yeah.
You didn't see an L and go, oh.
Yeah.
I get it.
And it all kind of culminates. Like, I was kind of surprised how much time is actually spent on Cutthroat Island. Like, they get to the island and there's an hour left of the movie. I'm just like, oh, wow, okay. I thought this was going to be more of like a Lost Ark kind of thing. But you do spend a lot of time on this island, including lots of the expected high-flying, like, swashbuckling kind of stunts. Like, they have to fall off a cliff into the waves, and they definitely hit that rock,
So
right? They
yeah,
100%
they
hit that
100%
rock.
they're dead. But also, whatever that guy's name, the pirate chronicler who
John
like
Reed.
betrayed everybody by sending a pigeon
Through a hurricane
to get the British forces there. That's not how homing pigeons work.
No.
That's not how pigeons work. And it's so like they are literally like, what, did they travel at the speed of light? How did they get there?
They're just email. That's all they are. They're early email.
I love the idea that he's just like goes up to the top deck and everything is a fucking disaster. There's wind and rain and he just kind of like opens his coat, pulls a pigeon out and goes, "Find the British." And then sets him off.
Be free. Like, I would have loved a shot of like the pigeon just immediately gets blown into the side of the ship and just falls into the water and a shark eats it.
He gets caught by the mast when the wind blows him into it and gets tangled up.
A larger seabird just snatches at it. There's a million ways. There are reasons to think that bird wouldn't make it.
That jump down where they definitely died.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching it and I'm like, 100%. If the waves happen the same way that they've been redoing the waves every time, they're going to be splattered. And then all of a sudden, some magic water came over and special effect.
Yes, yeah, just get it like washed away and they're fine.
All right, I forgot y'all had a green screen.
Yeah, and we get a pretty decent like final set piece showdown. I was surprised that like none of the tertiary like pirate characters died, like except for like the Mordecai character in the very beginning. That's the only one that usually like they'll kill off like one of the familiar faces just so we have some
and
stakes.
it's so funny because they have these extra characters. They have so many extra characters.
So many characters.
And honestly, like I feel like they could have cut the background budget or background people by half or 2/3 and it'd be more than enough population for the towns and for the ships. And I think it's really interesting. Another pirate show that I think does things really well is Our Flag Means Death.
Oh, see, I keep hearing that's great. I haven't watched it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Taika Waititi is dreamy. So is Rhys Davies.
I have such a hard time. See, I'm just so familiar to Rhys Davies from the Flight of the Conchords TV show, and I have such a hard time thinking of that character as being dreamy.
Well, he's not so much he's the soft boy.
Yeah,
he's the soft boy.
Sure.
It is just such a lovely like soft boy, bad guy romance, and it's just like they're like it's so charming. And but the thing is that they have a good 5-6 characters, but they keep going back to them. They develop the characters. I feel like they're really like there's a little tiny character arc for the guy I think goes on to be in Malcolm in the Middle.
Yes, that is Christopher Masterson. Yeah.
Like he finds his courage, but even then they have no real like it's very subtextual that he finds his courage.
Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about
the young blonde kid?
Yeah, the cabin boy or whatever.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I could have done without him just because I kept thinking he was Matthew Modine, like because they're wearing the same thing and they have the same hair the entire movie. So every time I'm just like, why? What are we? Okay, yeah, I thought he was with the.
What was about that English? I forgot what his rank was. the guy that just got sent on errands all the time.
Trotter.
Yeah. Trotter.
What was the deal with him just randomly like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm a pirate now.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna shoot my friends.
Hey, I mean, he was getting dumped on.
That's not uncommon. If a pirate takes your ship and like you're just like, you could die or you could come over to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo ho. Yeah.
It's like the entire time he's like trying to prove himself worthy of being a captain of a British ship. And then, like, he just randomly turns and starts shooting the British.
I do think that his random turn,
funny.
I think was stupid. I think they probably should have waited until the end and be like, "Oh, do you want to join us?" And he'd be like, "Arr,
I've never been respected before."
Yeah, like he just straight up shoots a dude, and then the guy goes, "What'd you do that for?" And he's like, there's no future in the military or in the Navy.
So I'll just commit a quick murder and then ensure that I'll need to. There are more efficient ways. You don't need to necessarily commit a crime to be a pirate at first. You'll commit the crimes later.
Well, and I think it's so funny, the ending, there's so much explosives.
Yes.
They're broadsides. Like, both of those ships would have gone down with those and that close of that activity. And the fact that they were like, they were exploding the ship and they had no recourse to capture the treasure. They were just shooting the hell out of it.
They did.
They did.
She tied a rope around it. Ropes survive
Ropes are
explosions.
But she didn't do that before she started exploding the ship.
No, don't worry about it.
It's fine. It's
Rope and fire, perfect together. Rope will never be damaged by fire. It will never cause problems when explosions are happening.
Yeah.
Tie it to all of your valuables and then tie a barrel to the other side.
It's funny. I think one of the reasons why this movie was such a flop was because it went for a PG-13 rating, which I just think that was stupid. They really should have tried to get the PG rating.
Yeah, just go younger and sillier. Yeah.
What did
even Muppet Treasure Island was a flop after this. Yeah.
What
even
did
that.
they do?
Yeah, pirates were just poison.
What got them the PG-13?
There's like stabbings and she's carrying around her dad's scalp for most of the movie. I guess that's
and then there's the one time where they search her by just groping her.
And again, there's just the incredibly juvenile banter between her and Modine, and they have that makeout scene. Like, it's like, are you really putting the moves on her while she's bleeding? You're putting your hand on her bullet wound.
And they find out later that he's not even a doctor. Why did he say he was a doctor?
I know exactly why he said he was a doctor. Because it sounds cooler.
Yeah.
And it helped him with what he was doing. But the fact that everyone else full sail took him at face value and nobody questioned, are you really a doctor?
Yeah, and I'm just not getting that roguish vibe off of Modine's performance here. He just seems like too much of like a good old boy. Like, he doesn't, I don't know. He feels like he should be more of the straight-laced, heroic type.
Instead of being a rogue, he seems more like a little rascal.
Yeah, he's just a scamp. He's a scamp.
So wild.
I do want to talk about the game a little bit because we've kind of reached the end of the movie. But there is one last thing I want to shout out, which is that final line as she defeats Frank Langella's character, which it's shot such a weird way. It feels like this really does feel like an insert shot. Like they thought of this line later and then they had her go back and reshoot it because she gets like she gets like the final line on him. And then she lights a cannon. A close-range cannon shot to the chest is what's going to kill the final villain. Pretty cool. But like she lights the cannon, we cut to his face, and then we cut back to her, and she says, "Bad dog." It is
so bad,
so cringy. It is so dumb. She had a perfectly good closing line right before that. It's clear that they added this in because they had no faith in that line landing. And then we get the goofy shot of like a dummy getting blown out the back of a tall ship.
I think it's what the movie deserved for having the bad guy be called Uncle Dog or Bad Dog or whatever.
Uncle Dog.
Uncle Dog, DAWG.
Yeah, I mean, that slang would have been in the vernacular at this point. Like, dog is like, it was a real thing. So it was just really funny. But, they, of course, because it's a movie like this, they can't, well, you actually know this is what I predicted. Like, because it's a movie like this, they can't take all the treasure But they do take all the treasure.
They do take all the
They
treasure.
win. They get all the treasure.
How did they get all that shit?
You're blowing out the levels.
Sorry.
So something that really I thought was so weird at the end of this movie, they have all the treasure. Everyone could be talking about the joys of what they want to spend their money on.
Yeah.
Instead, she's like, fellow pirates, let's continue to be pirates. And everyone's like, nah. And she's like, oh,
Please?
please, can we continue to be pirates? Because I have no purpose in life.
I want a farm.
Nope. Sorry, we're going pirating.
Well, and it's so ridiculous in that they're going to Morocco and they're not even supplied to
Was it
this is
Morocco
just
or Madagascar?
It's
Madagascar, sorry.
Madagascar.
Even
Yeah,
further.
no.
even further.
I mean,
You're
this
right.
is the same logic as like going to Vegas and like letting it ride on a craps table, you know? Like there's no actual legitimacy to like, you know, that thought. But yeah, they're just like they could walk away richer than any of them could ever be. And they're like, nah, let's keep pirating.
They had such like it was a great set piece of
But
all the treasure, but like how did they get it all?
Yeah.
But they didn't even agree to continue pirating. They were giving a non-committal.
Yeah.
They didn't agree. Yay, we're going to be pirates. Or no, they're not going to be pirates. It was just completely non-committal. And it was so silly. And to be like, and then like, I'll see you in my cabin right now. Like, dude, you're just dead. You're covered. Like, ugh.
Everybody's all
She
beat
also-
up.
Take a nap.
Yeah.
Previously, she like was holding her wound. She took a swig. She poured alcohol on the wound, held it again, went, oh, and then like 5 seconds later, both hands spreading out the map. I was like, ma'am, that is how you get it dirty. If
That's
this
how
is what you
infections
do,
happen.
how is it still so clean?
Yeah. You know, they sail off into the sunset, off to make the long-running Cutthroat Island franchise that we all love. Major moneymaker would go on in history. No, that is the end of that. A fascinating little movie, really pretty fun, but it requires a large amount of turning your brain off if you're going to really kind of get into it.
Just don't think about it.
But it did have a video game adaptation that has a couple of its own weird little things. Let's talk about Cutthroat Island, which was released in 1995, developed by Software Creations and published by Acclaim. And this came out on the Super NES, the Genesis, the Game Boy, and the Game Gear.
Can I say my lukewarm take?
Okay.
Better than the Lion King game.
Interesting. Okay. All right. We haven't gotten to that one yet, but I'm gonna dispute
remember
that.
the Lion King game being very entertaining.
I'm gonna dispute that heartily. But
well, when we get to the Lion King,
yeah.
I'll revisit the game.
I think
it's been a while, but I do not remember enjoying it that much.
My prediction for the Lion King game is that I'm gonna like it less, and you're gonna like it more than we remember. That's gonna be my thought. I think we're gonna kind of level out on that. But Software Creations we're going to come across a few times because they did a lot of licensed games. Most of them were early Marvel games, The Simpsons, Indiana Jones, Beauty and the Beast, Scooby-Doo, stuff like that. So a lot of those games were done by the same makers of this one. Now, this game is part of a rare and fascinating trend that I always love in video games, which is using in-game items to find real-world treasure. So this game's box art, they advertise a sweepstakes where you could win prizes by locating the 5 hidden treasure chests in the game. Then you would call a hotline, tell them where you found the chests, answer 3 trivia questions, and you get entered into a sweepstakes to win a quote-unquote boatload of prizes. Now, I was unable to confirm what prizes were given or if anybody ever bothered to claim these.
If it actually filled a boat.
Or if it actually filled a boat. But like this is a fascinating I imagine it's probably gonna be pretty boring. It's like a VHS copy of the movie and maybe like a poster or something. But there was a trend back in the early 80s, and this is a side tangent, but I gotta throw this out there because this story is incredible. There's a series of Atari games, Earth Quest, Air Quest, and Sword Quest. And if you were to solve those 3 games, you would be able to find access to real treasure in real life that the company would send to you. And I'm not talking about promotional materials. I'm talking about an actual golden crown with jewels put in it that would probably be worth upwards of like $75,000. And no one knows what happened to those items. They're still out there somewhere. Like they're probably in an auction house and you could find it. And I've always been curious, but they were Atari adventure games, and it was completely inscrutable to see what was going on. So, like, I don't know if anybody ever had any success, but it's an interesting story. Definitely look into that. This game, though, is your basic kind of side-scrolling brawler, similar to like Double Dragon, Streets of Rage, things like that. But the novel edition here is that instead of just bare-knuckle brawling, you permanently have swords. So this is a side-scrolling fencing game, which is, if nothing else, a little unique for this time. Now, I played a little bit of both versions, the Genesis and the Super NES. They're both functionally identical. I think the graphics are smoother and the music is better on the Super NES version, but the Genesis version has a brighter color palette and really terrible music. And the music in both versions are not very good. But this is what I will say for this game. I think it's got some nice, like, fluid-looking animation.
Honestly, it looked good.
Yeah, no, not bad. I mean, the backgrounds were drab. Which was my big issue. But like the character movements, clearly some thought and some like skilled animation went into bringing those characters to life.
Well, and I think it's funny because like just even like last week with Ice 9, there's so many games that are loosely based on the movie, and this game is genuinely based on the movie.
It is, absolutely. The sprites look pretty good, although I really felt like the Shaw character looked like Peter Pan. Like, didn't he look like he's wearing the little tunic and no pants? You know, he's just giving a very strong Peter Pan vibe. But yeah, no, we got.
Am I remembering incorrectly? But I always remembered Peter Pan with pants.
Oh no, Peter Pan does not wear pants.
Tights. Peter Pan wears tights.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're a form of pant. Like, he's not freeballing it, you know, but he is. Look, you know, it's things are tucked away, but it's not pants.
I'm not very well literate on tights. I just always throw them into the pants-ish category.
Yeah. I'm wearing Spanx right now, so like I get it. No,
okay.
Yeah, but like I particularly appreciate, like you were talking about how like gorgeous her hair looks in this movie. Like they animated her hair very well. Like it looks like her in the movie. And I think the sword fighting mechanics look pretty smooth.
They even do a costume change in the cart, which she's wearing the outfit that she was in the carriage scene.
Yeah,
the carriage escape with.
But the problem is, I think the gameplay is incredibly repetitive and pretty boring after a minute. Like, you do get to unlock some special moves as you complete each level, but the special moves are pretty difficult to execute, and really it's just a lot of like stab, stab, poke, poke, move to the next screen, stab, stab, poke, poke.
It's a lot less interesting than other like beat 'em ups and stuff. When did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game come out?
Oh, that was like 88, 89, which is still a classic of the genre. Yeah.
There's definitely better games that you could pull from and at least like look at and get ideas of like gauging of like, oh, okay, well, this game was this good.
Yeah.
These were the things that made it good. Let's like work on some of that. But, yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't come across this genre more, because it was the trend back in the early 90s of like, if you had a license and needed to crank out like a quick and easy video game, you just make it a side-scrolling beat 'em up and call it a day. So I think we are going to encounter a lot of these types of games, but it's weird that this is kind of the first, or maybe there's some that I'm forgetting from earlier on, but yeah, this feels like one of the earlier ones that we talked about.
What was the one? There was another game where it would the game that we played also involved swords and walking around and stuff.
Oh, I don't.
It was a little more
Dracula?
Metroid, like maybe it was Dracula.
Yeah, Dracula was kind of that. I forget exactly what it is, but this
it was a little more like Castlevania, Metroidvania. But.
This was the like kind of lazy game adaptation playbook right here. You just like make it a beat 'em up and then you call it a day. And like they put a little bit more effort into the animation than they probably needed to. Made a tiny bit of a technical showcase in that regard, but really, much like the movie, you're kind of getting everything you expect from a game like this. So we're going to get a beat 'em up section, and then there's going to be a minecart section, and then a beat 'em up.
And there's no easy way to continue your game, and you're very limited in lives. So it's just like it's one of those games that you just have to memorize, and I do get frustrated with games you have to memorize all the time. It just doesn't seem as fun or as fluid as games where you're actually playing.
I never had the patience for it. I really admire people on YouTube like doing these walkthroughs where like they've clearly like put the time into it and remember every little move, you know, and I could never do that. I just don't have the focus for it. I don't know. We did watch a little bit of a walkthrough, and apparently you can beat this whole thing in about 45 minutes if you know what you're doing, which seems about right.
And the person that we were watching seemed to be good and seemed to know like what was coming and stuff, but they weren't like speed running. Like if they unlocked an item or something, they would chill for a sec. Leave the text up on the screen and stuff. So no, I mean
it's a pretty unremarkable game in all.
It's just so like slightly below average.
Yeah, I mean it's got
slightly below average in the sense like slightly below okay.
It's got like a baseline competence to it, but I think we all got pretty bored with it pretty quickly. For me, it was the minecart level, which is level 2, just because it just feels 10% clunkier than it needs to.
And we didn't explore this, and neither did the person that we watched, but there was another combat style option for brawling.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that went, and I also wonder if it would have been more interesting to just have those be interchangeable throughout.
Yeah.
Either like this is a brawling section, this is a sword section, you're brawling until you get a sword, stuff like that.
I mean, you can pick up other weapons in this game too, but they don't really seem to change the dynamic very much.
You can pick up a buckler, which is a tiny shield. Which I really appreciated that from a historical fighting perspective.
I appreciated learning exactly what a buckler was finally. I've heard that term forever. I thought it was like something that went on your armor. You know, like I thought it was like a cod piece or something.
It's a buckler.
It's a little round shield.
Oh, makes sense.
But I think it's really interesting that this game sort of it has such the fighting style isn't terribly difficult, but it's not terribly fun. It's definitely like it's not like an artful fighting style. It's a lot of button mashing, which
we learned pretty early on, like if you just kind of crouch and stab, do a little crab walk and stab, then that's going to get you through most of the fights that you need to worry about.
And the guy in the was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because at one point J-Ban was playing, and I was like hearing the clickety clackety of the controller, and I was like, oh, this is what it always looks like in like commercials and stuff where somebody's like playing the PlayStation. And then it was very clear, like, I mean, I was doing the same thing. Like that's how you had to play this game, but it was like the like super button mashy, like
like if somebody's like acting like they're playing video games.
All it needed was us being more excited, and it would have been commercial worthy.
Yeah, but the game was not giving us a whole lot of reasons to get excited, you know, truth be told. Like, the movie is at least a fascinating fiasco and pretty entertaining on its own goofy merits, but this game is just average. Yeah.
And what it needed was it needed a more convoluted development story.
Yeah, I think we need a longer one. I am curious what made more money, this game or the movie. It's got to be the game. Probably tanked, right? Like the game must have tanked. This had no crossover appeal.
It's kind of made me wonder because like at the time, movies were, and even today, movies are significantly more mainstream than video games. Even though video games have gone so far into the mainstream. Back then, if this game had a tumultuous development cycle, would anybody even talk about it? Like, would we even know?
Yeah, it probably I think at this point, like if that one thing had gone wrong with this production, it would have gotten canceled.
The product lead could have been the worst person anybody involved had ever worked with. Yeah, and we would never know.
It is ultimately kind of the most surprising thing about this game is just that it got out at all. Like, just given how toxic this movie's reputation was, like it's kind of amazing that this got released.
When did it release in relation to the movie?
Same time. Yeah. Same time. Yeah, I don't think it was day and date, but it was right around the same time. They were both late in 95.
So production had already started before they would have been like, oh, hey.
Oh, yeah. It would have been underway.
This isn't, reading so well.
Not so great. Yeah. Well, let's move on to our final thoughts on these. Is this a good movie, good game, a bad movie, bad game, or somewhere in between? Justin, why don't you kick us off today? Where are you landing?
Oh, boy. Definitely for movie, I think I lean more towards bad movie than I will the game, just because, like, you have to really turn off like a lot of thought while watching the movie.
Yeah.
And it just all around makes it a very kind of less interesting experience.
Okay.
And then the game also is like, subpar for sure. It's not bad.
No.
But it's also, there's nothing great.
Yeah.
There's nothing too interesting. Once you've played the first 2 levels, it's like, oh, okay.
How about you, JVM? Where are you coming down?
I'm coming down as a childhood classic. Mm-hmm. I think this movie is also spectacular for female representation, even though it's sort of bad. It's still, it's still a female-led movie in a time when, female-led movies were 5-6 years apart from each other. And it's a woman with a sword, so it's after my own heart. I think the game is kind of bad, but I don't... it's definitely functional, and we've played a lot worse, so I'm hesitant to say bad because it is functional, but I'm just gonna say bad.
Yeah, follow your heart on that one, I think. I'm pretty soft on the movie because it is deeply dumb, but I also get on board with the spirit of what they're trying to do. And ultimately, I think it's harmless, it's just kind of like a silly little romp that, it's not really going to enrich your life, but you're not going to waste your time with it. So it's a marginal good movie, and it's also a marginal good game. They're both kind of just barely squeaking in there. Well, no, I'm going to go bad game, actually, because I immediately after saying it out loud, I tipped the other way because it's just very mediocre and bland.
You heard the blasphemy come out of your own mouth.
I heard it. I'm like, you know what? I'm course correcting on this. I might want to run for Congress one day. I think it is a bad game.
Against you.
Yeah, this is gonna resurface. Yeah. Oh, he gave a positive review to Cutthroat Island on Super Nintendo.
On both the movie and the game, technically.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll flame out faster than Ron DeSantis. Hey, cultural reference. Zing, 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 zing. That's people are. By the time this episode comes out, which is not long after that happened, people have already completely forgotten who that is.
Yeah.
So
unless they live in Florida, and they have to live it,
and then they've got their own problems. The Gator people are rising. So yeah, I think that's where we came down on Cutthroat Island. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you guys for coming in late and doing a recording on a Monday night. I certainly appreciate it. We've got a fun one coming up next week. Maybe a little redundant to have another Disney so close to Wall-E, but you know what? We've got a lot of these Disneys coming up. So we're going to be talking about 1967's The Jungle Book, which is just an absolute banger of an animated film, which I'm really looking forward to doing. And there's a couple of video games based on that movie. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to just the bare necessities, though, nothing elaborate. All right, y'all. Well, we will see you next time for The Jungle Book. And yo-ho, land-ho, ho-ho.
Do you think we could train Rivet to do stuff like the monkey?
I think we definitely can. Absolutely. We're going to get on that right now.